Hello and welcome to the Engineering Futures podcast. I'm your host, Paul Barker, and I'll be helping you explore the world of manufacturing by introducing you to successful people from across the sector. We'll touch on everything from personal experiences and professional challenges to contemporary issues affecting the sector, careers advice, and practical steps for employers who are looking to attract the top engineering talent. Join us as we get to know the people who have made a difference within the sector. Right, so Mr. Paul Bell, thank you for joining us today for the first podcast. I don't even know what this podcast is called yet, but it's the first one. So if you just give a quick introduction, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, fine. Thanks, Paul. Really looking forward to this. Should be good fun. Should be interesting. So I'm Paul Bell. Currently program leader at the Northwest Aerospace Alliance. Good mixed, varied history of working through engineering for Rolls Royce. Previous to that at the paper mill, Burnley Paper and Board Mills, where I kind of got my grounding of engineering. So yeah, looking forward to talking about everything. But yeah, role currently is Northwest Aerospace Alliance, supporting SMEs in innovation and diversification, and yeah, really enjoying it. So.
Yeah, and how's the work going there? Because that's and how long have you been there now?
I've been now the Aerospace Alliance for coming up 15 months. Absolute whirlwind. Loving every minute of it. I wake up before the alarm goes off, which is really unusual. But yeah, superb. Just I work with a smile on my face, which is brilliant.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll kind of get started with the questions then.
Yeah, I love it.
So first question I wanted to ask you was, what or who inspired you to pursue a career in engineering, kind of going back to your younger years?
Yes, so I think engineering has been in our family for generations. My great granddad was in the army, an engineer in the army. I don't know much about him. My granddad and my dad, both engineers, worked at Parsons Peebles in Edinburgh. So it was down on Leith Shoreline, quite a heavily industrial engineering. My dad then went into the Merchant Navy and spent quite a bit of time in the Merchant Navy, just furthering his engineering career. And then they both got opportunities to come down to Burnley and work for Lucas Aerospace. So the whole family, in I think it was 1978, 1979, moved down from Edinburgh. My dad and my granddad both worked at Lucas for probably 15, 16 years. Then my dad got a really good opportunity to go across to Rolls Royce in Barnoldswick. He worked at Barnolds, he was an inspector, so he wrote CMM programs and CMM inspected bearing housings, fan blades, lots of different things. So yeah, that's kind of the real ingrained reason why engineering was a kind of fascination.
So it was kind of written in the stars then that you were that's what you were going to end up doing.
Yeah, I think so. You kind of enjoy what your parents do, don't you? And especially the Northwest, it's an engineering kind of region. So yeah, it was a no-brainer really.
And what were your memories of kind of your family being engineers? What did that mean to you growing up?
I suppose it was shift work, so coming in at all different hours of the day and night. But having a decent living, so always having decent amounts of spare money to renovate houses, to have small holidays, to enjoy life really. So I think it always kind of give them a good standard of living. But I think it's also something where they're active and they're using their brain quite a lot. So I think it gives you a good level of communication as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you get support from them in terms of becoming an engineer? Is that always what they wanted for you, or was there something else that you thought you might do?
No, they were very open, to be honest. Yeah, it was a strange. They were never overly pushy. It was like, we've had a good life, good careers, but there's lots of other careers. But yeah, it kind of fell into place really. There was no hard sell. But but I think they were both proud that when myself and my older brother were both in engineering. So yeah, they were both quite proud of the fact, really. Good standard tradition. And my son's just going through a mature apprenticeship at Safran now at the moment, so it's another generation as well.
Oh, excellent. What's he doing there? What apprenticeship is he doing?
Just a full-on mature apprentice. So I think it's a bit of scope of everything. Yeah, I don't think there's a particular route that they're looking down at the moment. Just upskilling him.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, very good. Yeah. Okay. So, one question I'm quite interested in is the role of kind of mentorship, and kind of continuous learning. How did that influence your career, play a part in your career, and influence your success?
Oh, it's huge. I don't think you can underrate a good mentor. Even like you look back where people have just said things to you that's really made a difference. That's a real small step in mentoring. I think it's been massive. Like to be able to talk to somebody, to be able to share experiences, somebody that's already lived that life, kind of thing. It's hugely important to stop you making mistakes. And I think I was really lucky when I stepped into management at Rolls Royce. I had some real senior managers take time out of their busy schedule to come up to Barnoldswick. So these guys were executives of certain divisions, but had picked me out to come and do a bit of support, which was really, really scary at the time, because whenever any of the execs come on site, everyone was, from bosses downwards, a little bit nervous. But when they took 30 or 40 minutes out of their time to come and visit me on my cell, to give me some coaching and some support, it was really, really good. And I've 3 or 4 high-ranking officials within Rolls Royce that have come and spent time with me, and I didn't realise at the time, a bit too nervous, I think, at the time, how really important that was. And even like on the flip side of it, like when they were visiting, my boss was always asking me afterwards what they were here for, what did they want from me, not overly encouraging, almost like I was a challenge underneath him, and he didn't quite like that. But again, looking back, I think that the mentoring and the encouragement that came from that level of person with inside Rolls Royce was absolutely key to building my confidence, and then for the rest of my career, kind of handing a bit of that back into the younger ones that came through after me. So yeah, I think you can't put enough emphasis on having a good coach or good mentor that can influence you.
Yeah, and in terms of those mentors, was that something that was built in from a cultural perspective at the company where they have mentors in place, or was that more people taking the time to make an effort with you?
It's now built in, but then it wasn't. It was just, I think I had one of the most difficult cells to run within Rolls Royce, being a superplastic forming cell. It was notoriously difficult, notoriously a bottleneck, and I think when I'd stepped into the role, we were starting to do things slightly differently, and they just wanted to come along and impart some knowledge and support to me. But I think they've kind of taken that further over the last 4 or 5 years, where they are matching mentors up with younger managers. So I think somebody must have seen the benefit in it, and it's now kind of ingrained in their like management progression skills, if you will.
So it's an interesting one, mentor, because people have a different interpretation of what a mentor is. When I think back to my apprenticeship days, the people who I think of as my mentors, they probably might not even been aware that and actually, I remember going back, I'd served my time at AIT, that what was AIT in Burnley. I think it's now Pursuit Aerospace. And I went back about 5 years ago when I was working at college to take some students around, and I actually saw one of the guys that I'd been with during my apprenticeship days that I really looked up to, and he meant a really lot to me. But when I went back, he didn't really remember me. And it just, because he probably does this all the time. He's probably the go-to guy that apprentices go with him. But yeah, it's a funny one into but so needed to learn more about yourself. Because when you're growing up, it's not just the learning to become an engineer, it's learning to become a grown-up, isn't it, as well, that these people can kind of help with.
It is, and it's interacting with other engineers, which is not always easy. Engineers per se kind of are driven, they're kind of single-focused. So having a grown-up conversation and not a slanging match when there's an issue is a skill. So I think, that's kind of opens up another market of skill sets. But yeah, it is difficult. But saying the right things to young engineers coming up can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And then what about kind of continuous learning? So how do you make sure throughout your career that you are in a position to be able to grow and develop in that role? What has worked well for you?
I think good discussions with people that have lived and walked it. So, the older generation that have made the mistakes. I think that's always good. I was quite lucky, really. When I was at Rolls Royce in the management, they implemented what was called the Rolls Royce management system, which was a system that you could take into any single cell all over the world in Rolls Royce, and you and me could step into that cell, and within a day we could understand every metric in that cell and then run the cell. So it was a kind of business continuity measure, but it looked across 24 different structures of like risk and risk management and quality and all the different procedurals that would, in effect, run a cell. So I think when I went through that kind of training and procedural wise, that gives you a real good grounding of what to look for in any business. And that to me is the journey of continuous improvement. What to look for, how to look at it, any risks that you've got, any quality issues you've got, and the metrics behind that of who to go, who to see, who to use. So I think that was a real good grounding for me because it gives you a real breadth of knowledge. So I think that's probably the main thing. But then any other courses or content that's up to date, like things like body language, things like discrimination, just keeping yourself abreast of what is current and current thinking processes, just to make sure that you're not going to be one of them dinosaurs that get left behind, and that's your style. And I think one of the clearest things that somebody ever said to me was, all styles get results. So you don't just have to be that authoritarian manager that demands that you do this. I always found you could work with things more progressively and get more results. So once you understand different styles of management, I think that also gives you a continuous learning experience, because you can try, fail, park it, try something else, or that's a bit more successful, and then that's a continuous improvement as well.
I think that's an interesting one. You touch on management styles, and that's something that I've always found fascinating in terms of how to get the best out of people. And some places you do have that mix, and that can work because you've got different kind of managers that you can interact with that do things in a different way. So you're not getting too much of that I can't even say it. But you know what I mean? Yeah, you're not getting, if that doesn't work for you, you're being satisfied in other ways. But that's it's definitely an interesting one, that. But okay, so moving on from that, can you think of any memorable experiences from your engineering career that's had an impact on you and your professional development?
Yes, and it probably comes from one of the lowest points in my managerial career as well. So I was fresh into management on one of the shifts that I used to work closely with, and on the end of the first week, they held a mutiny against me. They weren't happy with me. There were lots of very aggressive conversations. So I kind of put a stop to it and brought them all into the big office. Got my boss at the time to come down just to try and talk through what was going on. And then there was 14 adult engineers in that room, and one after the other, they lambasted me. I could not get a word in. Turned to my boss and said, "Get control of this. This is a discussion, not a pulling down match." And about another 3 or 4 minutes went on, and it was just, I was trying to answer one question, I was getting lambasted from somebody else about something, and I just shouted at the top of my voice, "Stop!" Open door, sent them all out, closed the door, turned to my boss and went, "I feel like I've just been hung. Where's the support?" And they said, "Well, I didn't think it went too bad, actually." And I was like, wow. I was nearly in tears. I was just like, wow. So, right, okay, I will deal with this. So off they went, and then I just thought, well, the two main protagonists were quite forward people, very, very probably aggressively overt with their thinking. So I went and singled them out with a one-to-one conversation, not aggressive at all. I sat down, made them sit down out in the shop floor somewhere different, had a big chat about what's going on. And it kind of came to mind that I was micromanaging them. And they were a very well-drilled team, and they didn't need micromanaging. So it was a real kind of twitch moment for me, thinking, right, I can't be a friend and a manager in this environment at the same time. At the same time, we used to invite me into the brew room, we'd sit, have coffee, sit and have lunch together. I mean, we're on shifts at the time, so this might be a Friday, Saturday night, it might be a Monday, Tuesday morning. And they'd say, come in, come and sit down, have your breakfast with us, have your supper with us. And I kind of thought, no, that's putting pressure on these guys, and it's making them feel uncomfortable having a manager that used to be a friend, that used to be a colleague. So I kind of took myself completely away and had all my lunches and everything else on my own in a little room. And then once I finished, I come out, and every now and again I'd have a coffee with them. But the relationships grew from making that divide so much stronger than it was when I was kind of impinging on their kind of space when they wanted to sit and chat. And even though we were good friends, they'd say, come on in. I'm like, no, I'm going to eat my lunch out here. You have your lunch. So I think that was like a real turning point for me to say, you've got to make that cut. You can still be really, really pally and good, but when it comes to being a manager in that kind of situation, it's completely different. And having them boundaries worked for the team and worked for myself as well. So I kind of looked for the positive that came out of a real low negative on that one. But I think that really made a huge impact on the team as well. So
yeah, and it's interesting what you say there about not being able to be the friend and the manager. And I think that that resonates with me, because I remember when I first stepped up to be a manager, and it was a progression. And I remember my boss at the time saying, you're not one of them anymore. And I kind of thought I could do both, and you can't. And you learn through the mistakes, don't you? You learn through those kind of revolts and the kind of, the ones that's got the ears of the rest of the staff shouting the loudest and things like that. And you've got to try and manage that. And I think that can be, it can be a real negative, but then you don't get bitten the second time, do you?
No.
And how did it make you feel then? So when you were in that pressure cauldron situation where they're all shouting and screaming at you, how did that make you feel?
That's a good one. I mean, normally I'm quite a cool cookie and quite laid back, but you can feel the tension, the anger rising, and then you're saying things off the cuff that you don't actually mean or think. So again, I think I was getting to that point, so I just called a full stop to it, and I think that was my right before this gets really silly. Let's just call a stop and then we'll reconvene. Lack of support from our manager, that really, really hurt. But one of the interesting things is that the most mouthiest guy that was there, that was real causing such a scene, when I had a one-to-one with him the second time around, he was still a bit niggly with me, and I just said to him, so what's your problem? He went, I can do a better job than you. I said, can you now? He said, yep. I said, well, it's just so lucky that there's an advertisement coming out tomorrow for another manager. We need another one. Put your money where your mouth is, get applied. So big and bullshit, I'm going to do that. And he applied, and he took the job, and he had the exact same thing 3 months later with another team that I had with him. And he came to me and went, I've just done exactly the same as what you were doing. I'm micromanaging. How did you deal with it? Again, that bit of reverse coaching. But our styles were completely different. Again, which again comes back to all styles get results. And he was the authoritarian. He was the one that went in there and demanded this doing and demanded that doing. And that was great. He got that done. But he didn't get anything else done because the team weren't thinking of their own kind of way that the shift worked and making sure that everything was done in a balance. He only got what he asked for. And several years later, he came back to me and because he didn't like my style, and I was okay with his style. You do what you have to. And he came back to me and he said that to me. He said, all styles get results, and I've seen your results. I'm like, good. That's a positive in my mind. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I'm thinking back to the managers I've had, and some of them I didn't like. So plain and simple, I didn't like. But you kind of do respect them though, regardless of the style, because as long as they're knowledgeable and they're experienced, and you can kind of see why they're doing it. You might not agree with it, but you still get that respect from them. I suppose that's the key, isn't it, to getting your team to work from you? They have to be able to respect you. You have to be leading by example and getting that respect.
Well, you're right, Paul. I mean, throughout my career, I can pick out good managers and bad managers, but I respect them all because, they held a level, they get respect. I was never a cheeky man. Just, if they asked me to do something, I could question it, but I question it in the right kind of way. But if they wanted to do it in the end, then I'd do that. But I think the managers that you do question and say, well, if I did this, this, and this, I'd get 3 times more product out, and it'll take me the same time rather than just focus on that. And then they were like, right, that's really good. If you can do that, brilliant, but make sure you hit these targets. So there was different styles from different people. I think that's what I've taken in my life. I've kind of plucked out the bits that I respected and built them into my kind of capability and knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's time and experience, isn't it, that gives you that. No, for me, used to be very emotional, and when you talk about that fire building inside of you, that used to happen to me all the time. Whereas I've learned to control that now and learn to kind of, you refine yourself, don't you?
Yes.
And I suppose, so that brings us on to kind of the next question then, about in terms of success. How do you define and measure success for yourself professionally?
That's a really difficult question, Paul. I mean, I don't think we look at ourselves in the mirror very often, do we? But I suppose as I matured in my management roles through Rolls Royce, there's many points in my career I can think of as celebrating success with the team, not particularly for myself, but being proud of what the teams have achieved. Like, we've won several awards internally through safety, quality, cost, delivery. Got some really nice glass kind of trophies, some memorabilia. We had pies bought for the entire cell by one of the senior managers. We had about £3,000 in monetary value worth of chocolate that was given to us on some of the successes that we'd had as teams. We shared that out with everyone across the site, and it kind of brought attention to what we were doing on on health and safety and things. It was really good. So these small wins you can celebrate, but I don't know. I think for me that the real things is when I've got like a world-class self-directed team that I've kind of molded over 2 or 3 years that runs autonomously, and then they'll come to me when there's an issue, but they've already got 3 problem solve reaction solutions to that issue, and they just want to see which one I want to go for first. That to me was like massive success, because that team's been molded and drilled into a kind of, we can do this in our cell, look after the entire cell, but every now and again we just need to come to you for a little bit of qualification and we're doing the right thing. So I think that for me that was massive success. I think personally one of the biggest compliments I got paid is I became kind of a specialist on superplastic forming, which was the cell I worked on for 5 years. I managed it for 7 years, so a lot of time spent on there. And I think my intrinsic knowledge of the machines, especially when I stepped into management, because I started working a lot closer with my mechanical engineers and programmers that were doing these machines, to understand the possibility of what can we push these machines to through different kinds of trial work, just that engagement through the team and the ME structure, pushing the boundaries. And then 2 of my working team leaders were on the shift at the same time, which is normally unusual, but one of them had shift transferred for a week or so. And both of them had a huge amount of knowledge and capability within superplastic forming. And we were discussing an issue between the 2 working team leaders, 2 of my MEs and myself, about what was going on with the machine. And I give my 2 penneth, and all 3 of them stood back and looked at me and went, "How on earth do you know so much? You're just Paul. You've come from us. How do you know so much of this?" And other working team leader said, "God, you're so boring." And I thought it was brilliant, because I took an interest. But it's like when you get to a different level, it opens up different doors and different conversations. So for me, that was just like knowledge building. And I just wanted to make sure that whenever there was any problems, I could support maintenance, I could support the lads on the shop floor, I could support ME. And I think my knowledge kind of helped guide that. So I tried to make it as like it was going to be my cell. Nobody else wanted to be on that cell because it was very difficult. I've been on it years, so it was like a safe pair of hands. I might as well know as much as I can about it. And I found it interesting. So superheating titanium into a plastic state is just fascinating. So why wouldn't you want to know more about it? You blow it full of argon, you get a nice shape, and it's like, wow, look at that! It's just ridiculous. So yeah, I think success for me is different levels, and I don't always celebrate it personally. I like to see it shared.
Yeah, I think that's and when you spoke earlier about the sharing chocolates and things like that, I think that that's for me, whenever I've worked somewhere and I've had a manager that has done that, that's like tried to just celebrate success for the team in a really simple way, something like that. I think it really works, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and the engagement that you get post that's brilliant. But then next time they want pies. Next time,
right, okay, so this is a bit of a personal question as well, but have you ever experienced imposter syndrome in your career, in your journey?
Right at the start of this podcast.
Me too.
First one ever, and I'm loving it. It's great. Yes, Paul, many, many, many times. And it's quite a debilitating experience as well at times. And I'm very confident, and I always have been very confident. Always did lots of sports at school, and I think when you're in the middle of teams, it builds your confidence, because I like to build teams around me, and that's what I do. And I probably use that confidence to overcome situations that I don't feel comfortable in. But I think my way that I address these is be honest, be yourself, ask questions. If you don't know the answer, and I always think that's a stupid question. No question's stupid. If you don't know the answer, then you need to find that answer. Then ask the question, and somebody might look at you and go, "You don't know that." Well, no, that's why I'm asking. And then, oh, okay. And then most people want to help. Most people want to support you and take that away. But I've had it all through my management levels, all through project management levels, all through running the plant at Rolls Royce when I was on weekend shift. When your confidence levels dip, that's when your brain starts to go into overtime and saying, "Can you manage to do this? Can you really solve this problem?" I mean, I think there was a time when it was a Saturday afternoon, late on, massive delivery day. I got a phone call from engine build at Rolls Royce in Derby, and they'd banged a fan blade and needed either repairing or replacing. And I ain't got a clue. I've never come across this in mine. And this needed to go onto engine build for a Sunday morning. Otherwise, it was going to cost Rolls Royce £1 million. So the monetary pressure was on, time pressure was on, and I had no idea where to go, and I didn't know what to do. But luckily, one of the older MEs that I had on at the weekend had this before, so we went through it. We did lots of searching. The blade was quite a light blade, which was really difficult to find. But we ended up having to ship the one from Derby up, put it through our team. They kind of refettled it, took the prang out of it, remeasured it, reweighed it. We got it sent back down. Great success. Lots of people came round. Big celebration. But again, it's like I didn't know what to do, and that mild 10 minutes of panic, sat there thinking, how the hell do I get through this? Again, just going to ask a question, and it all kind of came into focus, and then the whole team got together, and I think that's it. You get the buy-in of the right people, and you can overcome most engineering solutions. And yeah, don't let it stop you.
Yeah, it's a funny one. It's not something that I'm a bit like you, kind of always been quite confident in my abilities and my own skin. But I think I read some, I can't remember what the quote is, but it was like, in terms of imposter syndrome, don't worry about anyone thinking you're a fake, because most people are thinking that they're a fake and that others are going to find out about them. So people are so wrapped up in themselves that it's that worry that other people are thinking bad things about you, which usually just isn't the case, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, so last couple of questions.
Okay.
It's been really good, this, Paul, by the way. I'm enjoying this so far for the first one. But so in terms of, obviously, you're at the business end of what is going on within Lancashire, I think it's fair to say.
Yes.
Dealing with a number. I think, how many members have you got? You're approaching 200, is it, for the Alliance?
Yeah, I think we'll be over 200 by the end of the year.
So you're in and out and speaking to a lot of businesses. How do you think, in terms of the evolution of the engineering industry, how has it changed, and what do you anticipate? What excites you about innovation within Lancashire, if you will, and what will come in the future?
Lots of things. I think we're at the forefront of so many different technologies, and we're good at it. The Industrial Revolution all started in Lancashire and still is, and graphene is the latest Industry 4.0 that's coming out of Lancashire. And nanomaterial that you can do great things with. The National Cyber Force is coming to Samlesbury over the next couple of years, and that's going to be huge. That's national within our doorstep. There's so many great companies around Lancashire, so many great SMEs that feed the big companies. It's amazing, but I think change has been massive. Transformation is huge. I think the big things that are going on that I'm seeing across Lancashire, probably advanced engineering, manufacturing specific, is probably sustainability, electrification, digital transformation, the space sector growth. That seems to be off the charts at the moment. So it's a really exciting time. And it is, it's I think the future for SMEs, with so many different options that are coming around the north and the northwest, it's an exciting time. There's issues that come with that. So coming from end-to-end engineering, the skill sets, where's the skill sets coming from? There are definite gaps in skills across the market. You've got really good, that BA taking 1,000 skilled men on, but it shakes the supply chain. So the supply chain are losing people to BE, so they need to be fishing in the same pond. So there's a disconnect at the moment between education and engineers that are coming into the system. So I'm hoping that's something that we can support you, Paul, on, and closing that gap ever so slightly. But again, it's exciting. You know, that the drive for sustainability is driving the OEMs and primes, like your Airbuses, like your Spirits, like your GKNs, back on shore, back onto Britain again. So over the next 2 to 5 years, the supply chain is going to look completely different to what it looks like now. So opportunities there. And luckily, the Northwest Aerospace Alliance are in the middle of that to support SMEs and kind of help and guide and make the right connections.
Yeah, I think for me as well, what's amazing when you start to actually see how many extraordinary businesses there are that are hidden in plain sight as well, that you don't even know they're there, but they've been there for years and they're doing amazing things. And that is, I was in one the other day and it was like 5 minutes from where I grew up, and they've been there for 40 years, and we were like, wow, never knew they existed, didn't know they were there.
And that's a problem, because you've got great companies like that who are working next door to great companies, and they don't even know what each other does. But to have any kind of collaboration and you know, that, I think that's the only way that companies are going to really grow stronger and move forward. You need to know what everyone else is doing around you. And I think that's one of the best kind of selling points of the Northwest Aerospace Alliance is we have made it our mission to go and find out who you are, what you're doing, what you're capable of, where you want to go, and then we can start making the connections, and that helps business grow very, very quickly.
Okay, and then final question.
Okay.
What advice would you give to a 21-year-old Paul Bell?
Do not, under any circumstances, sell your Nissan 350Z. I miss that car dearly. It's another great question, Paul. I would probably say work on yourself quicker. Don't let your teammates hold you back. Because I think when you're in a good group of people and they don't want to see you progress because they don't want to see you leave their group. And it's not a nasty thing or a bad thing. They just enjoy your company. And then if you leave, somebody else comes in and it changes the dynamic of what they're doing within that engineering group, within that cell, within that business you're working on. So I think I've let that hold me back a little bit in the past. For me, I'd take all the opportunities, take all the courses from magnificent employees that I've been employed with, and then put that into practice. But I think more importantly, just be yourself.
Yeah. I think solid advice, and I think I totally agree with that. About, you know, if you get offers, if you get opportunity to progress, or if you get opportunities for professional development, further development in any way, snatch their hands off and you know, don't stall. Just do it, make it happen.
And don't be afraid to ask.
Mm.
You know, I think looking at employee retention, which is quite a difficult thing for SMEs at the moment, most companies don't know what their employees want or need. And if you don't have that conversation and ask, then they'll never know. And the worst they can say is no, but we'll have a look at it again in 3 months, or have a look in 6 months, or we've got this going on. Would you like to try this instead? And anything that gives you breadth of skill, then it all benefits yourself, because that's just your building blocks to being a more rounded engineer.
Okay, well, Thank you, Paul. That's it. That's the end of our chat today.
I'm disappointed. That's been really good. It's flown
It has
by.
been very good. Yeah, no, it has been very good. I think for the first one as well, not bad. Not bad.
Yeah. Loved it. Great questions, Paul.
Yeah, cheers, Paul. Well, in terms of, if anyone's listening to this and they want to find out more about the Aerospace Alliance, what's the next steps for them?
You can get on the Aerospace Alliance website. You can contact me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Aerospace. paul.bell@aerospace.co.uk. Just get in touch if you want to come around and have a visit, see what your factory and your company is all about. We'd love to do that. We'd love to come and meet you. Love to come and see you. And we don't waste your time. If you fall within the remits of advanced engineering, manufacturing, or that kind of support, we can work with you. We can put you in contact with many other like-minded people. And the Northwest Aerospace Alliance holds some fantastic events, lots of mix and mingling, all the right people in the room, and it's the best network that I've seen in the last 10 to 15 years. So, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, superb. Right, well, Paul, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Right, cheers.
Okay, bye now.